Good evening. Thanks for joining us for Special Report Online. I'm Brett Baer. If this is your first time aboard, welcome. It's a great forum for you to continue the conversation with our panel. Type in a question, comment. Don't worry if you don't see it. Producers are putting it in the queue as fast as they can. But type on and let us know. We'll bring in our panel. We lost Molly, but Byron, Chuck, and Charles are still here. We were talking about the Comey testimony. It was released today. And Chad Pergram up on the Hill citing bipartisan congressional sources saying that it is rather dramatic and it is Comey-esque in that it has literary and cinematic qualities in its description to perhaps make the moments a little bit more dramatic than they may have been.
You know, I think actually, perhaps conversely, one effect of this might be to drain a little bit of the drama from tomorrow, because imagine we're all looking at this. We don't know what he's going to say, and he comes out and he reads this. I mean, and you're just taking it all in, and so now we actually know it, and I believe now have an ability to listen more critically. I have no doubt that he'll have some new stuff to say, but we can listen more critically, having had a chance to digest what he has released.
Well, that's, if I may, Brett, that's a really good point, because you think about, pardon the expression, the theatrics of this. I don't know, just looking at this is a long statement. This probably takes 20-25 minutes to read, right? If he hadn't, or they hadn't released it ahead of time, we'd be hanging on every word.
Yep. Now,
you can eat your popcorn and ignore it because you already know what he's going to say.
But if you're going to watch it, you got to watch it on Fox.
Nice. He's making up for telling us how boring it was going to be earlier in the week.
So you're absolutely right. It reduces the suspense about what's coming tomorrow.
I warned you, could be a bust.
Yeah.
No, but this, what I think is interesting is you can kind of segment the testimony on the part about Trump wanting him to say publicly that we're not investigating you. That's plausible, and I think that's the major theme. On the Flynn thing, the president is somewhat vulnerable, but Comey does point out that he understood the request not to be about Flynn as part of the Russia probe or as part of some collusion conspiracy, but on the very narrow issue of telling the truth about the phone call with the Russian. I mean, it's pretty inappropriate to have said, see if you can let it go, but it's much narrower and less of an indictment than we would have imagined. And then what's left? Where's the original crime? Where's the collusion? I think this Trump is a fairly good document. I mean, perhaps it'll be different when Comey interprets it tomorrow, but on the face of it, if this is all that's released, I think he comes out ahead.
I think there are places in this in which you could say that Trump is thinking like a human being and Comey's thinking like a lawyer, because Trump is saying, look, you've told me time after time that I'm not under investigation. Then you go to Capitol Hill and Senator Blumenthal says, is the President of the United States a target of an investigation? And Comey says, well, I can't say one way or the other. So this is driving Trump crazy. And so he says, why can't you go out and tell them? Which is precisely, by the way, what Senator Grassley said, who, after being briefed by Comey, came out and said, I think Comey should tell the American people what he just told Senator Feinstein and me.
All right, let's talk just politically here. Is this dangerous at all for Democrats? If the there never comes, if the obstruction never gets to that level, and it is, as Jonathan Turley says, inappropriate and boorish and childish, but not illegal, do Democrats risk, or are they in political risk, by going over their skis and really going whole hog here on this?
Absolutely not. And I will tell you why. Because their messaging on this is not aimed at any middle-of-the-road general public audience. Let's face it, in American politics, there aren't many people out there who sort of haven't made up their minds about almost anything yet. There are very few persuadables.
But there are people who voted for Trump who now are disaffected or somehow affected by, if you just look at approval polls.
True, but I think the main purpose of this, from the point of view of the Democratic Party politically, is to, it's good for the base. You know, this is absolutely like red meat for the base. The people you're talking about who might be having misgivings about Trump, you know, are having them for all sorts of reasons. This is absolutely in response to demand from the base that we get to the bottom of this, we investigate this, et cetera, et cetera. And just one other point, if I might, on that. You know, I think the smart play for the Democrats, if they want to find something wrong and bad in all of this, is to shift the focus a little bit from the obstruction of the Flynn thing and move to the big picture, which is when all this was over, he fired you, right? To keep getting that point home, because that is what looks bad. It looks from this like you could portray this as Trump just didn't get what he wanted from Jim Comey, and so he fired him.
Yeah, the only problem with that is a lot of the Democrats saying that would be the ones who said he should be fired after the Hillary Clinton thing. And so, I mean, basically this statement, I think he's trying to walk the Hillary Clinton line, which is, I'm not going to tell you that this is definitively a crime. I'm going to lay it out there with the grandfather clock and the no facial expressions, and I'm going to tell you everything in detail, and then I'm not going to answer any questions about it, and you decide.
Look, I think that's the way he operates. I think that's the political question you were asking. Democrats have a sense that this is a no-lose proposition. You know, look at how far we have come. Still, after all these months, no crime. Where's the original crime? All cover up, no crime. Where is the evidence of collusion? There's none. There's, you know, innuendo, suggestions. There's no. What's the big event? Flynn lied. I mean, is this Watergate? I mean, and yet they have inflated it. They have the press going hysterical over this, supporting them, blanket coverage, wiping out. I mean, look, what an exciting week, right? This is infrastructure week. Wow, what a great infrastructure week. They got nothing. They can't get through the fog. So why shouldn't the Democrats continue? The Mueller investigation could go on for 18 months. This will totally smother the Trump agenda and the Trump presidency, and it's all to their benefit.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, Byron, what has come out about that's substantive with these leaks, namely the NSA records, is that Russia at least attempted to do something on voting, was not successful, but attempted.
Right.
And that the president at the time, President Obama, told us that there wasn't.
Right.
And that administration maybe didn't retaliate as much as they should have.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is the underlying crime here, and Russia did it. I mean, that's always been the case. Before Trump fired Comey, the outcome of this case was kind of coming into view, which was that Michael Flynn was going to get in trouble for his dealings with Turkey and maybe for violating the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Paul Manafort was going to get in trouble for some sort of sleazy business dealing in Ukraine in the past decade or so. Maybe Carter Page would have some sort of problem, you know, and that was kind of going to be it. And the whole idea of collusion would sort of went away. Now, Trump's actions, not only what he told Comey, but as Chuck says, much more importantly, firing Comey, has brought about this whole obstruction idea so much that in terms of continuing the investigation, it doesn't matter whether Trump colluded with the Russians anymore.
Exactly.
But even Comey says he didn't think it meant dropping the entire Russia investigation. All right, hold on. Let me play President Trump talking to Lester Holt about these meetings.
He wanted to have dinner because he wanted to stay on. We had a very nice dinner at the White House very early on. A dinner was arranged. I think he asked for the dinner. And he wanted to stay on as the FBI head. And at that time, he told me, you are not under investigation. Then, during a phone call, he said it. And then during another phone call, he said it. So he said it once at dinner, and then he said it twice during phone calls.
Did you call him?
In one case, I called him. In one case, he called me.
And did you ask, am I under investigation?
I actually asked him, yes. He said, you are not under investigation.
And obviously, it backs it up in the testimony that we saw today, that statement.
I'm so delighted to find myself in agreement with Byron about so much today. And just in that vein, what especially after watching that clip again, what emerges from the information we're getting so far is a president who is just so darn frustrated and irked with Jim Comey for not delivering him this clean bill of health in public that he was giving him in private, that he finally just said, get out of here, I'm finished with you. That's increasingly what it's looking like, because as the president himself tweeted, this was about Russia, it wasn't about the Hillary stuff. And again, I think that, I don't know if that's an impeachable offense. I don't know whether that's obstruction of justice. I don't think that's consistent with the independent role of the FBI, and that's a real problem for Trump. That's a legit issue for Democrats and, frankly, Republicans to hammer on.
I don't know. Comey tells him, he offers this, that he's not investigating. Let's go testimony 2. Prior to the January 6th meeting, I discussed with the FBI's leadership team whether I should be prepared to assure President-elect Trump that we were not investigating him personally. That was true. During our one-on-one meeting at Trump Tower, based on President-elect Trump's reaction to the briefing and without him directly asking the question, I offered that assurance. January 27th, he was considering ordering me to investigate the alleged incident to prove it didn't happen. This is about the dossier that they proved, they said, was not truthful. And Trump is quoted by Comey saying, I didn't hook up with hookers in Russia. I replied that he should give that careful thought, because it might create a narrative that we were investigating him personally, which we weren't. March 30th phone call, I explained that we had briefed the leadership of Congress on exactly which individuals we were investigating, and that we had told those congressional leaders that we were not personally investigating President Trump. I reminded him I had previously told him that. That is the Feinstein-Grassley comment, where they can't officially say it, but they get almost there, and nobody sees it except we run the soundbite.
That's why I think, the Occam's razor here, the simplest explanation is, I think Chuck is right, sort of psychologically. Here's a president, he says that dossier with all the hooker stuff, he says, look, that's crazy stuff. Can you have an investigation? Clear me. Comey says, no, we can't, or we don't think it's wise, because it'll look like we're investigating you. So Trump is thinking, well, can you say that you're not investigating? And that's when, incidentally, Comey volunteers that Trump is not being investigated. First time. It's not Trump asking, which sounded sort of inappropriate when he said it on Lester Holt. First time was actually Comey who said, you're not under investigation, so we don't want to give the impression. And then they can't even speak about not being under investigation. And I think it was a wholly inappropriate and terribly self-destructive decision to go and to fire him, because it created a firestorm. But again, this is sort of the biggest, this is the Watergate of crimes, of cover-ups without a crime. I don't think there's any, as of now. There could be, I'm not saying there isn't, but show me where it is.
Okay. It's fair to say that the president is concerned about himself. That he is, I think a lot of people say, pretty narcissistic, talks about himself a lot, is concerned about how he's perceived. The statement from his outside attorney says the president is pleased that Mr. Comey has finally publicly confirmed his private reports that the president was not under investigation in any Russian probe. The president feels completely and totally vindicated. He is eager to continue to move forward with his agenda. I mean, it is about him, not the other investigation, not if some satellite part of his team was talking to the Russians. It's about him.
Of course. I mean, that's why we're talking about it. That's why Congress is doing what it's doing. I do think on the frustration part, you get a little better idea of this from Trump's point of view, in which Comey talks about first meeting Trump. The first meeting was when the intel chiefs went up to Trump Tower. Trump is president-elect at that point, and they're telling him about various things, and they want to tell him about the Russian hooker dossier. And they all look at each other and say, Comey, you do it, because you're not leaving office when the administration changes.
And you're 7 feet tall.
And you're 7 feet tall, and he can't knock you down. So Comey tells Trump about all of this stuff, and I believe tomorrow, when he's under oath saying this, will be the first time Comey comes out and says this dossier is unverified. And so, provided that it is in fact unverified, Trump is hearing this crazy stuff. The director of the FBI is telling him he hasn't even taken the oath of office yet, and a huge investigation is going to flower from it. No wonder Trump feels kind of odd about all this.
I have 2 more questions. I got to wrap up early, and I'm sorry I didn't get to your comments. For some reason, I can't see them tonight, but we hope you can see us. First of all, why can't the White House say that the president has support or supports Attorney General Sessions? We're on our second day. We're on our fifth question from reporters. Sean Spicer cannot answer the question, does the president have confidence in Attorney General Sessions? We know that he offered his resignation 2 weeks ago. We don't know whether it made it all the way to President Trump, but we know that it was not acted on and that he's still in the position. But they can't tell us, the reporters at the White House, the press pool, whether he has confidence in his Attorney General.
Well, I guess there are two ways to answer that. One is maybe because he doesn't have confidence in him. That's one possibility. And the other possibility is that they have no way of knowing from 1 minute to the next whether he has confidence in him or not. And they've been burned so many times before by making representations to the public about what the president does or does not believe, and only to find out later on that they were inaccurate. And so I view these hapless folks in the communication shop over there as just doing the most prudent thing. Having said that, this is maybe the most bizarre part of this whole story. Jeff Sessions is practically co-responsible for the Trump presidency. He was his most important legitimating supporter in the Senate. All of a sudden, the president's turning his back on him because what? Because he recused himself under fire, maybe, from this Russia thing? Wow, that's some serious turn in your
I mean, this is a guy who I interviewed the day the Access Hollywood tape came out, and he was out defending.
Absolutely.
And stuck with him through the darkest of dark in the campaign. I want to ask you the last question. Is it right for a super PAC supporting President Trump to be running an ad tomorrow against Jim Comey?
Well, right, I think there is no right and wrong anymore. Political advertising. Is it politically smart? I don't think it is. I actually think you might want to be a bit more delicate with Comey.
Considering what you read today.
Considering what you read today, there's a lot to exonerate. You know, there's some edges here that are a little bit sharp, but the general thrust of it is Trump acting sort of fairly reasonably overall. And, you know, you've already learned what it's like when you attack him. Look at all the blowback and all the leaks that prompted Trump to say, you better watch out, I might have some tapes on you. I don't think it's smart. It's the Trump, you know, it's his instinct. You're attacked or you're not, perhaps he's not happy with all of this stuff that's in the testimony. I'm sure with some of it he doesn't like it. So he's one that strikes back. And he always has to show that he's the tougher guy. It's not always a smart play, as he should have learned from the firing itself.
Attacking Comey was 8 o'clock this morning thinking, it's not 4 o'clock this afternoon thinking.
Which is the message coming out of his outside attorney as well. Okay, sorry I got to wrap up early. Again, sorry I didn't get to your comments. We'll do it next Wednesday. Special report online. See you tomorrow morning at 9.